Have you ever received an invitation you wish you hadn't? Meet John, a man with a sharp wit and a skeptical mind. One day, out of the blue, an old friend he hadn't heard from in years invited him on a camping trip. It was an odd invitation, sure, but John, always game for an adventure, shrugged off the oddity. His friend's sudden reappearance, the cryptic invitation, none of it seemed to matter. His adventurous spirit was kindled, and his sarcasm, as always, was ready at his side. Let's see what this is about, he thought, his words laced with a dry humor only he could appreciate. He packed his backpack, his mind filled with thoughts of the wilderness and campfires under the starlit sky. He was completely oblivious of the eerie journey that lay ahead, the chilling tales that would soon become his reality. And so, with a sardonic smile and a backpack, John headed to the unknown. Ever walked into a place that made your skin crawl? That's exactly how John felt as he stepped foot into the campsite. It was the kind of place that seemed innocently mundane under the sun's watchful gaze, but as twilight draped its dark cloak over the landscape, a chill of unease began to seep into the air. The campfire, once a beacon of warmth and camaraderie, now flickered ominously, casting long, grotesque shadows that danced on the bark of the surrounding trees. John, known for his quick wit, tried to lighten the mood with a couple of jokes. Yet his laughter bounced back from the silent woods, swallowed by the growing darkness, leaving an echo of unease in its wake. The more he tried to brush off the feeling, the more it clung to him, a cold shiver that refused to leave his spine. As the fire died down and the darkness swallowed the campsite, John couldn't shake off the feeling that he was not alone. What would you do if you found yourself face to face with your worst nightmare? As the curtain of night fell, John, our witty yet increasingly terrified camper, began to hear peculiar sounds piercing the tranquil silence. They were not the usual chirping of crickets or the rustling of the wind. The noises were unfamiliar, unsettling, and seemed to be drawing nearer with each passing minute. John, in a vain attempt to lighten the situation, tried to mask his growing fear with humor. He cracked jokes, his voice echoing through the dense forest, but the tremor in his voice was unmistakable. Every snide comment was tinged with a sense of dread, each laugh a little too forced. The woods, once a sanctuary of solitude and peace, had transformed into a theater of unseen terrors. Then, in the distance, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. It seemed to be observing John, its glowing eyes cutting through the night like two fiery embers. The figure stood still, an ominous silhouette against the moonlit forest backdrop. John, summoning all his courage, ventured to confront the entity, but even as he approached, the figure vanished, swallowed by the darkness from whence it came. With his heart pounding and his jokes failing him, John was left alone in the dark, with the feeling of being watched. The eerie encounter, though brief, left a lingering sense of unease, a chilling reminder that in the wilderness, you're never truly alone. Have you ever wished for the morning light more than anything else? As the first rays of dawn pierced through the veil of darkness, John's eyes fell upon a chilling sight. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest, his breath hitched. There, encircling his tent, were footprints. Footprints that hadn't been there when he'd retired for the night. His mind raced back to the haunting figure he'd seen, now a reality, not just a figment of his imagination. In the midst of his terror, John discovered a note, carelessly tossed aside. It was from one of his so-called friends, the truth unraveled in a messy scrawl. The camping trip, it appeared, was nothing more than a test of courage, a tradition among their group of friends. A test, he thought, that he could have done without. As he processed the revelation, a bitter laugh escaped his lips. Of course, his friends would think a night of terror was a great bonding experience. His heart still pounded, but now with annoyance and relief, not fear. He couldn't help but roll his eyes at the absurdity of it all. And as the sun rose, John packed up his fears, his sarcasm, and a story he'd never forget. "Some friends you are," he muttered, vowing never to accept a camping invitation ever again.